We're going to start with this one. We got a really short one. Like I said, this was what I was going to title the show today. Where are we here? Okay, so this is 30 seconds long. And it talks about how much has changed in the last 150 years in terms of our governments and our taxes and everything. So the title of today's show was supposed to be called Free Range Humans in a Tax Farm. And so let's watch this and see what she's talking about here.
150 years ago, you didn't have to ask permission from the government to go fishing, own a property, build on your property, renovate your home, use a transportation vehicle, start a business, get married, own a weapon, hunt, cut hair, sell a product, protest, grow your own food, sell that food that you grow on your own property, or even just set up a lemonade stand. And now you virtually can't do anything without asking for the government's permission first. So if you still think you're free, you're deluding yourself. Hate to break it to you, but you're a free-range human in a tax farm. 150 years ago, you didn't have to ask permission from the government.
Free-range humans in a tax farm. I think that's an incredible analogy because I've had conversations with friends before, and I don't really want to dive too far into this on a public show. But as soon as you use the word slave, that's when they instantly shut off. They just, as soon as you say that, they don't listen to a single word you say after that. And that's because we've had such a negative connotation around the word slave, and how we've been taught history through the years. But if you think about a lot of people right now in the world that we live in, the fiat world, everybody's working harder for less. 40 years ago, there was one parent that had to go to work and they could afford pretty much anything with that one salary. Now you got two parents working. The kids go off to public school where they learn about all this woke bullshit while the parents are working their asses off. And a lot of people I know work all day, every day, just to get by. So what would you call that? Well, this one is a free-range human in a tax farm. I like that one because it perfectly sums it up. You know, we have this, like I said, a very negative connotation around the word slave. You think of slave and it's like somebody out there with a whip and you're chained up. That's not what actually happened, for one. But if you think about people who are just working to survive, and you say, well, they're not being forced to work. Well, our government, if you look at the debt clock that we have, when you're born into the world right now, you have about $220,000 worth of debt on your back. The day you come out, your first breath, you got $220,000 worth of debt attached to you. And then you go off, you go through school, you learn how to be a good employee, a good society member. You go to school even further, you take on more debt. You're promised a really good job at the end of it. Then you finish school, you have $100,000 worth more debt on top of that. You don't have a job. You're working at Starbucks. And what do? You got to pay for rent. You got to pay for your food. You got to pay for a few other things along the way. What are you supposed to do? Not work? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't work. That's the exact opposite of what I'm saying here. I'm saying our work, our labor, and our energy should not be allocated to where it's being allocated right now. We should be way more abundant than we are today. Way more. We were. I mean, that video 150 years ago, you didn't have to ask permission. Let's watch it again after talking about that. These are all the things that they brought into the world in the last 150 years.
150 years ago, you didn't have to ask permission from the government to go fishing, own a property, build on your property, renovate your home, use a transportation vehicle, start a business, get married, own a weapon, hunt, cut hair, sell a product, protest, grow your own food, sell that food that you grow on your own property, or even just set up a lemonade stand. And now you virtually can't do anything without asking for the government's permission first. So if you still think you're free, you're deluding yourself. Hate to break it to you, but you're a free range human in a tax farm. 150 years ago,
It's crazy. It's crazy what's happened, and it's crazy that most people are just okay with it. And it's mostly because we've never known anything differently. The old fish born into water is it's a perfect analogy for that. Most people don't know any differently because we've never lived in a world where that wasn't around. So what I'm getting at here, and I think that, hopefully that people can understand what I'm saying here. But this is the other part of it, because we do have a choice now. We didn't have a choice. In a world before Bitcoin, we didn't have a choice, and we were in a lot of trouble, I think, because if you go down the CBDC rabbit hole and you say, okay, well, that was their plan all along to introduce this digital dollar. They knew that this fiat dollar would die. They knew that the whole system would have to be reset, and they would usher us into this central bank digital currency. By that time, everybody would be on their smartphones. Everybody would have everything attached to that. And that's basically everything that's kept in all those things they just listed. How they can enforce those, their threat. If you don't pay your tax, if you don't do this, if you don't do that, we're going to shut down your bank account. And if you don't have a bank account, you're in a lot of trouble. In a society like this, you're in a lot of trouble. You can't get a mortgage, you can't get a car, you can't get anything without a bank account. You can't start a business without a bank account. But with Bitcoin, they can't do that to you. They can't freeze your Bitcoin. They can't. They can come to your house, they can knock on your door and say, hey, we saw that you bought this Bitcoin back in 2024, hand it over. And if you do it properly, if you're ready for that, if you prepare for that, there's nothing that they can do. They would actually have to go inside of your brain, get 12 words, extract those 12 words, get your Bitcoin and send it to themselves. And there's no way that happens today anyways. So yes, if we continue down this road and CBDCs were introduced and you said something wrong, or if I posted this video online and the CBDC owners, the government didn't like that, they could freeze my account. And in a world without cash, I would be in a lot of trouble. And that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to get rid of cash. They wanted to go 100% digital, and they would have full control of every aspect of your life, even more than they've already got right now. But with Bitcoin, they can't do that. So they can introduce all these different things that they want. It's not going to have the same impact as it did when they could freeze your bank account and essentially ruin your life with that. They can't do that anymore. So this next part here, which I'm going to be talking about, is, there's some action over in Zap.stream. Love to see that. We got, I'll have to refresh this so I can see npubs. Okay, I'm going to come back to that because it's still just showing npub. Oh, there we go. So it says, my path to fire zapped 100 sats. Thank you, my friend. Said so true. And Daniel says, I'm super interested in ways of, this is something else. Sorry. My path to fire says, make people a slave and they don't even realize it. I was telling somebody yesterday that there wasn't passports 100 years ago. They couldn't believe it. That's what I mean. We're fish born in water, and they were going to usher us into this very dark, dangerous, controlled world until Bitcoin. So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The boating accident is kind of like a funny joke and like a metaphor around Bitcoin world, but it's the truth, because if you really think about it, if they came to your house and asked for your Bitcoin and you did it properly, if you have things set up properly, there's absolutely no way for them to actually get that Bitcoin. They cannot confiscate it from you. And when they can't freeze it, when they can't confiscate it, that takes away a lot of their control. a lot of it. That's been their threat for the 150 years. If you don't follow these rules, we're going to shut you down. So there are more things to worry about here. There's a lot to navigate and plan out with this whole thing. And we're still thankfully in the early stages of this. And people who are here now are going to have the ability to do that. Not everybody will. Not everybody will.